Federal government takes social intervention scheme to some markets in Lagos. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo launches the no-interest loan trader money at Bariga, Ketu and Oshodi markets. Nigeria and Canada strengthen ties at the Investment Summit in Abuja, where federal government asks investors for more support for the ERGP. And global remittances rose to $613 billion in 2017, of which $72 billion was received by African countries, says the Central Bank of Nigeria and the African Institute for Remittances at a workshop in Abuja. Hello there and welcome to the program. The portfolio where we look at issues and events as they affect the economy, finance and business. We are reaching you from the studio of NTA News 24 here in the nation's capital city, Abuja. I am Vivian Idekbefo. Once again, welcome. On this edition, we shall be looking at developments in Nigeria's capital market. But before we delve into the meat of the matter, here is Comfort Amodu with the news.
A warm welcome to the segment. We start with financial issues. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria, 3 commercial banks fell short of the minimum regulatory liquidity ratio of 30%. At the end of June 2018, the industry average capital adequacy ratio stood at 12.08%, compared with 10.23% and 11.51% at the end of June and December last year. The industry threshold, however, remained at 15.0% for banks with international authorization and 10.0% for banks with either national or regional authorization. Asset quality of the banking industry measured by the ratio of non-performing loans dropped to 12.45% at the end of June 2018, compared with 14.80% and 15.02% at the end of December 2017. At this level, the ratio remained above the regulatory threshold of 5.0%. Consequently, the CBN has directed banks to intensify efforts at debt recovery, realization of collateral for lost facilities, and strengthening their risk management processes. And still on financial matters, the Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, says the federal government has incurred a total amount of 16 billion naira as transaction cost on the Treasury single account within the last 2 years. He noted that federal government would no longer bear the service charge on all payments to its ministries, departments and agencies, as such cost will be borne by the payer, adding that the Central Bank of Nigeria, as the regulatory body, would always intervene if any service provided charges beyond the approved rate.
Now time for Nigerians also to pay for the services that they receive, and government will take whatever is due to it without necessarily incurring cost. And I think to a large extent we have done enough sensitization. We have all the backing and the approval, and this is time for Nigerians really to understand and to support government in this direction.
And in the meantime, jewelers in Nigeria are calling for the establishment of gold processing factories to save capital flight and create jobs. A visit to the popular jewelries market in Wuse, Abuja, indicates that the level of turnover in the business is one that is almost incomparable to a whole number of other commodities sold in the popular market. An indication that revenue generated is huge. This is as even as a gram of pure gold jewelry is sold between 15 to 25,000 naira, depending on the carat and design. In view of this, jewelers are drawing the attention of the federal government to consider harnessing the abundant potential in the industry to serve as a good revenue earner for the economy.
Always go to Dubai and purchase the finished product of the gold. We do go there because we don't have alternative here in our hometown.
We have gold which can be rated up to 24 karat. And going by that geological data, we have it in tonnage, of ounce, in higher deposit, and in a commercial quantity.
And in another development, the federal government has flagged off the Trader Money Program in Jalingo, the Taraba state capital. The scheme, which is a part of the social intervention program of the Buhari-led administration, is targeted at petty traders, artisans and operators of small-scale businesses. The report indicates that thousands of traders have so far benefited from the program in the state.
You can look at the poor woman around smiling because she has never expected 10,000 naira. When you look at her entire capital, it's not more than 1,000 or 2. And come to think about it, what can 10,000 naira do to her? Of course, it will go a long way in boosting our business, in solving lots of our problems at home.
And that report ends the news segment. Portfolio continues with Vivian. I'm Comfort Amodo. Thanks for watching.
Time now for the discussion segment, where earlier I spoke with the Managing Director of the National Association of Securities Dealers, the NASD. Amidst political activities and concerns for the stability of the economy, even as global leaders warn of an impending gloom, the capital markets in Nigeria has continued to evolve, responding to the needs of the investing public. Some analysts describe it as a dynamic institution, braving the odds and opening new vista of opportunities for a wide range of investors. Now, not everyone who goes to the capital market is aware of the various platforms available for trading or raising capital. One of such platforms is the National Association of Securities Dealers, NASD for short. It is an over-the-counter, that is an OTC securities exchange platform that trades in unlisted securities. I am not an authority, but I do have one with me in the studio. He is Mr. Bola Ajomale, the Managing Director of the NASD OTC Securities Exchange. You're welcome to the portfolio.
Thank you very much, Vivian.
Now, tell us what the NASD is all about.
Well, NASD is an over-the-counter market. It trades in securities that are not listed on any other exchange. And right now we have 38 such companies that are trading on that exchange. We are 5 years old, and in that time we have acquired 120 stockbroking firms that operate on that market. You can buy and sell the shares of, they're essentially public companies, but they're not listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We then provide an alternative market where such securities can be traded.
When you say an alternative market, what is that?
Now, so you have a full stock exchange has got certain rules and requirements. We, however, take the point of view of not regulating, not necessarily seeking to regulate the company itself, but seeking to regulate the operators in the market. So we are saying that investors can go through a stockbroker, we call them participants. You can go through a participant of the market, and that participant is bound to act within certain rules. The participant is supposed to give you best value, they're supposed to look for the best opportunity for you, and they're supposed to report very accurately the details of their trade. We think that, and our point of view is also guided by the fact that the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the apex regulator of the capital market, has already provided some rules for public companies within which public companies should operate. And so we believe that the Securities and Exchange Commission will regulate the issuers, the public companies, while we regulate the operators in that market. So that's really the service that we provide.
Okay, so the Nigerian capital market closed the year 2018 more or less like the bride, you know, having the winning accolades as the third best performing globally. And then suddenly things started changing. And right now it's having a mixed run, but the NASD seems to be doing so well, particularly with the third quarter report that was published.
Well, let me address perception, first of all.
Okay.
The Nigerian capital market is very wide, and there are various operators in the Nigerian capital market. Right now, in the Nigerian capital market, you have got 5 different markets. You have got 2 commodities exchanges. You have got 1 full stock exchange, and then you have 2 over-the-counter exchanges. So NASD is one of the over-the-counter exchanges. FMDQ is an over-the-counter exchange. They trade in debt instruments. Then you have the Nigerian Stock Exchange. You have AFEX, and then another commodities exchange. So that's the whole expanse of the capital market. Now, one part of the capital market last year is the part that you're referring to, which is the Nigerian Stock Exchange, presumably. But there are other sides to the market, and each one of them complements and runs parallel to the other. As I say, we're an alternative market. The returns that have been generated by NASD this year are in the range of 20%, a positive of about 20%. Indeed, some securities have returned a rise in capitalization of about 80% in this year alone. Now, that runs counter to what is happening in other segments of the market. And so investments flow from one end of the market to the other, and it's just a continuation of how things should run.
So what then is your area of coverage? Who can trade on the platform?
Okay, so our area of coverage is every public security. Any public security can trade on the platform. What we have tried to avoid is duplicating what already is on a market. So if you find a security that is on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, it is not likely that you will trade on our platform. But you have got many securities, quite a few securities that are not there. You have, I think, 250 securities that are trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And then you have a whole lot of companies that are not trading on any market. Those ones are eligible to trade. Once they have regularized themselves with the Securities and Exchange Commission, they're eligible to trade on the NASD. So let me give you an example of some kind of companies that are trading there. The makers of Peak Milk, for example, Friesland Campina. That's a public company. It's been around for about 70 odd years. When we started operation 5 years ago, we brought them into trade on that market. So they now trade on NASD. Again, the makers of Indomin, Dufil, those securities are trading on that market. So any company, really, that is not trading on any other market, you will see it trading on an NASD if an investor applies to trade it.
So why then the concerns by the Securities and Exchange Commission that trading in bonds and such instruments shouldn't be on something like the NASD or people coming in?
There's nothing stopping it. It's actually encouraged.
Okay.
It is heavily encouraged. Anything, in fact, the Securities and Exchange Commission has got a rule that says once they have registered a security, then that security can only trade on one of the platforms that they recognize, which is one of those 5 platforms that I mentioned before. So in actual fact, they actively encourage that any security, once it is a public security, must trade on one of the platforms. They do not specify one platform above another as well.
Okay, so how would you describe a participation of local investors?
Local investors, well, local investors do invest. I think they went through a period when the market went downwards and they did not get out in time, and they thought they were not sure whether they had got the right deal. I think right now local investors are still a bit careful about investing in the market. I think as well, and a lot of operators agree, that a lot of education is required, because what we see happening sometimes is that foreign investors make a move into the economy and local investors come in afterwards. Now, by the time they are coming in, the foreign investors sometimes are going out, and so they don't really make the returns that the foreign investors are making, and so sometimes they don't make as much money as they expect. We hope that with education that will change. We also hope that with a lot more research and with a lot more participation, being closer to the markets, that will change as well, where they would actually be the ones who will be more proactive. Having said that, I must add, though, that we also see a couple of local investors who invest for the long term. And when you're investing for the long term, it doesn't really matter whether the price is going up or down. You're looking at, over the next 10 years, you're locking away something that you want to grow with the company. And so those ones, again, we see quite a few local investors doing that, and we encourage those.
You did say that the NASD, like deepening the market for and easing the process of raising capital. Tell us about that. Okay,
so we operate on two major fronts. We first of all started with the secondary side, and that's for you to be able to buy, and sell securities of public companies. Now, we have 38 of those companies. Our capitalization on that market is about $500 million and growing. But we think that the real growth of the economy is in the indigenous growing companies. And so we set up a new portal for those ones, and we call that the NASD Enterprise Portal. And that's not so much for trading, but that's for capital raise to a certain extent. The companies can well, it's like the first introduction of companies to the capital market, and we call it going upstream. So what we're doing is we're looking for companies that are growth-oriented, companies that are doing well. They've done maybe 2 or 3 years. They are very serious about their business. They have got a financial history already. They're building a financial history, and we're just giving them the additional discipline of coming closer to the capital market, presenting their information in such a way that potential investors want to see. And then on the other side, we have stationed private equity investors who are looking for investment opportunities as well. And the two of them can meet on that portal and get to invest. So that's it's not so much a public market; it's more a private equity market that we're establishing.
Okay, now some foreign financial institutions closed shop recently in the country, and there have been insinuations that perhaps it's a pointer to the health of Nigeria's financial market. What's your take?
I think the Nigerian market will continue regardless. It's like when people talk about foreign investors leaving the country and people selling their equities and buying dollars. That will always happen. Nigeria has remained. I believe Nigeria will continue to remain. As those companies are closing down, remember that there are quite a few who are also looking to come into the country, who are coming in on a daily basis. Indeed, there is a conference going on right now, which is looking at bringing in quite a few investors, which is looking at expanding the scope of the economy and building partnerships with another part of the world. So the economy will continue. 1 or 2 institutions will go down. It may also be because of a review of their own risk requirements in that particular company. So again, it's not. I don't think it's too much of a reflection of Nigeria. Otherwise, we'll see a different country.
And you did mention about the Nigeria-Canada Investment Summit. Mm-hmm. Tell us what the summit is all about.
Well, I think it's been established that Nigeria and Canada have quite a few resources in common and quite a few potential in common. We have probably not as developed an agricultural industry, so has Canada. The mining industry and the type of mineral resources that are available are quite common between the two companies as well. We have large infrastructure requirements. In fact, today I was learning that bilateral trade between Nigeria and Canada is in the region of $1.8 billion. And it is not all in the form of aid. It's actual honest trading going on between the two countries. Over 11,000 students are in Canada. Nigeria invested about $890 million in Canada over the year. So, there are some numbers that were popping up that shows that there's quite a lot of activity between the two countries. And so the conference right now is trying to encourage, actively encourage that to be grown. Now, for what we can see, and at the summit, we saw quite a few mining companies who are looking, they're called junior mining companies, and they're looking at coming into the Nigerian economy to actually start working on our solid minerals. We saw some people from the aviation industry. We saw some from the education, from the health. So there's a lot of interaction, cross-fertilization of business ideas between Nigeria and Canada that are going on in that conference. And at the end of it, I think some very important, very interesting agreements will be signed as well.
So, and the conference is talking about building partnerships for building strong partnerships into the future. So, as a securities exchange, how do we achieve this?
Well, as a securities exchange for NSD, the place where we play is that for every company, as I said, every growth-oriented company, we will list them. We will take them in, we will list them, and they are open to investors in both countries. Now, if they're going to be open to investors in both countries, then it is possible or likely that you'd want a dual listing. So as they're building partnerships in the mining industry and building partnerships in infrastructure and so on, we are also building in the exchange business with some of the exchanges out of this country so that you can actually do a dual listing when you're coming into Nigeria.
That would be very good for our country. Thank you so much, Mr. Bola Ajumale, for coming on the program, The Portfolio.
Thank you very much.
And now we turn to Joy Uzo, who has an update on the capital market.
Welcome. It's another time to bring you a review of the capital market performance for the previous week and a quick check on how some foreign stocks kicked off in early trading this Monday. For the week ended November 2, 2018, a total turnover of 1.267 billion shares worth 20.346 billion naira in 15,088 deals were traded last week by investors on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization depreciated by 2.38% to close the week at 32,124.94 and 11.728 trillion naira respectively. Similarly, all other indices finished lower with the exception of the NSE ASEM Index that closed flat. The financial services industry measured by volume led the activity chart with 1.082 billion shares valued at 12.735 billion naira traded in 8,397 deals, thus contributing 85.38% and 62.59% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. The consumer goods industry followed with 83.168 million shares worth 3.295 billion naira in 2,888 deals. The third place was conglomerates industry with a turnover of 32.817 million shares worth 109.846 million naira in 654 deals. Trading in the top three equities, namely First City Monument Bank PLC, Guarantee Trust Bank PLC and Zenith Bank PLC, measured by volume accounted for 670.295 million shares worth 11.019 billion naira in 2,768 deals, contributing 52.90% and 54.16% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. Also traded during the week were a total of 15,168 units of exchange traded products, ETPs valued at 216,251 naira executed in 9 deals. A total of 14,581 units of federal government bonds valued at 14.472 million naira were traded last week in 34 deals. 18 equities appreciated in price during the week under review. 50 equities depreciated in price, while 101 equities remained unchanged, the same with 101 equities recorded in the preceding week. And in the early hours of this Monday, European stocks were mostly mixed as investors digested different political events. The German DAX appreciated 0.08%, FTSE 100 0.4%, and the Francis CAC 40 also rose 0.04%. Meanwhile, in the United States, most stocks started the day red as investors turned focus to fresh sanctions on Iran and the upcoming midterm elections. The Nasdaq Composite Index slipped 0.4%, S&P 500 0.63%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average also declined 0.43%. And with that, we conclude the Capital Market Review segment. Many thanks for watching. I'm Joy Uzo.
That review concludes the program for this week. Do keep a date with us, same time next week for a fresh episode. But let's keep talking business. Follow us on any of our social media platforms. Till then, I am Vivian Itekwefo. Bye for now.